Good evening, everyone. Can you guys in the back hear me?
Stand up.
Stand up. I'm going to move instead of one. Is that better? All right. First of all, I want to thank everyone for being here tonight. I pretty much know most of you, but I'm Mandy White, the Executive Director of the Crossett Chamber. I'm just glad everyone decided to come out tonight. For those of you who are not in person, we're doing this Facebook Live. We're happy to be able to do that tonight. So the ones that could not come in person are able to watch this event on Facebook from their homes. I'd like to start out with, we're going to say a prayer. The American Legion has joined us tonight to host this, and so we are going to start with prayer tonight.
Let us pray, and please. Our most gracious and heavenly Father, as the election approaches, we seek to better understand the issues and concerns that confront our town of Crossett, and how your word compels us to respond as faithful citizens in our community. We ask for eyes that are free from blindness, so that we might see each other as brothers and sisters, ones who are equal in dignity, especially those who are victims of abuse, violence, deceit, and poverty. We ask for ears that will hear and tongues that will speak truthfully, and in doing so, we will give all honor, glory, and praise to your name. Heavenly Father, let us not forget the needs of our children, unborn and those abandoned, men and women oppressed because of their faith, race, creed, or gender. We ask for our minds and hearts to be open to hearing the voice of leaders who will bring us closer to your holy plan of living in peace, justice, and righteousness. We pray for discernment so that we may choose leaders to guide us who hear your word, live your love, and keep in the ways of your truth that they walk after the Holy Spirit. We ask this in your Son's most righteous and heavenly name, the name that is above all names, our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. Amen. Stand and join me with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic which stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please stand for the
Thank you. You can be seated now. Now coming to the stage is Mr. Howard Beatty. He is our Chamber Board President, and he is going to go over the program rules and guidelines for tonight and also do a brief introduction of our candidates. Welcome, Mr. Howard Beatty.
Touch that. Thank y'all. I appreciate you coming out tonight. I'll say this, it's a little warm in here. We apologize for that, and thank you for the attendance. To go over a few of the program guidelines and rules, all of the questions you'll hear asked tonight came from the public, members of the chamber that were submitted by email to the chamber. Those questions in total were about 39 questions. They were narrowed down to 18 because there were a lot of overlap and duplicate questions. So those were reduced to 18 questions. All 18 questions are in the hopper tonight and live for question and answer. And what we have decided to do is they're all in sealed envelopes. We drew, or we're going to draw, for order in which the candidates will select questions and answer. We'll start with 3-minute introductory remarks from the candidates, and then they'll draw a question, and we'll progress through the line. Each question, the candidate will be asked, and then the other 4 will be asked the question, and will be allowed 2 minutes to respond. There'll also be a 1-minute rebuttal per question, and then at the end, when we go through, almost knocked over the button. We'll go through those questions. We think time will allow for about 10 questions. If time allows for more, we'll do more questions. The questions that are not asked tonight will be provided to the candidates for written responses, and we'll publish those on the chamber page and provide them to the press. And then they'll have 2 minutes at the end to follow up and wrap up. I think this was the group decided to go the fairest way with the questions. So I hope this process works. Everyone's questions are in the hopper here. First thing I want to do is I want us all to give a round of applause to these folks who have stepped up to the plate and want to serve as our leaders. It's sometimes a thankless job. It's going to be difficult to put your family and yourself in the scrutiny of running for public office. So I applaud you, and I wish you all the best of luck. Thank you.
Okay, the first thing I'm going to do before I introduce our moderator is I'm going to let the candidates draw for their numbers. This will be their drawing number for tonight. There's 5 pieces of paper in here, so they each draw. Okay, so what are we going with? Sarah's number 2, Kevin is 5. Mr. Morrison's number 1, Bill's 3. Okay. It's a great honor tonight that I get to introduce you to our moderator, Mr. Gary Newton. I met Gary many, many years ago after working with him at the Little Rock Regional Chamber of Commerce. I would always love to hear him tell us funny acting stories, and my favorite one was when he would always say that he went up for the same role as Will Ferrell, and I'm glad that Will Ferrell won, or I wouldn't have ever got to work with Gary. So, he has a long list of accolades. Gary joins us tonight in Little Rock, Arkansas. He's worn many hats, including Executive Vice President of the Little Rock Regional Chamber of Commerce and the Little Rock Film Commissioner. He worked for the Arkansas Film Commission to restore production incentives to Arkansas, and co-founded the Arkansas Production Alliance and served as acting chairman and founding board member of the Arkansas Motion Picture Alliance. In 2012, he agreed to start up and become president and CEO of Arkansas Learns, a nonprofit, nonpartisan private sector alliance dedicated to the development, retention, and attraction of talent as a driver of economic development. He's an 8th-generation native of the Ozarks and graduate of the University of Arkansas, and received a national scholarship to train at Newark's American Musical and Dramatic Academy. Since his first professional job as Sprocket on Saturday Night Live, he has had principal and recurring roles in a variety of productions, including network series, feature films, short stage, commercials, gaming, and industrials. He backed up Liza Minnelli on The Tonight Show and serenaded Burt Reynolds with an original song on the set of an NBC sitcom. I could go on and on tonight about his accolades, but with that being said, it is an honor for me to introduce Mr. Gary Dick.
Thank you, Mandy. It's great to see her again. It's been a long time. This is one of the best member recruiters we ever had at the Little Rock Chamber, so you were blessed to have her in your community. For sure. What she didn't mention about any life in the arts or in entertainment is the failure. And it's very similar to politics. You have to be willing to put yourself out there and risk failure to get the reward, hopefully, at some point. So hats off to the 5 of you for your willingness to enter the arena. And remember, it's not necessarily about the result, it's about the journey along the way and wherever that leads you. So thank you already for your service. So with that, number 1 was right in the middle.
Thank you for this opportunity. When I met my husband, Crossett native Courtney Marshall, it wasn't long before I knew Crossett would be our forever home. But when we arrived with our daughters, Reese and Reagan, I had no idea of the adventure and opportunities that lie ahead. Shortly after moving, I started attending public events and city council meetings. I wanted to understand the heartbeat of our town and where I fit in. It didn't take me long to learn that Crossett is a giving community with many ways to volunteer and serve. Our city has the heart of a servant, which fits well with my desires and skills. This is one of the reasons I chose the slogan, "Together we can," as it illustrates so well people working together for progress. I took every opportunity to learn the needs, challenges, and concerns facing Crossett. This led to me being asked to run for city council, where twice elected I served until being sworn in as mayor after the loss of Mayor McCormick. The city council is an excellent place to learn about the everyday business of the city and municipal finances. My personal strengths of teamwork, problem solving, and communication were a great fit for this position. As a council member, I championed many projects, including the disc golf course, the city pool, the youth center, playground, and pavilion upgrades, and getting the bathrooms fixed and opened at the city park. I'm known as someone who gets things done and someone who gets things done for Crossett. While on city council, I worked with the department heads to rewrite the personnel handbook to be compliant with current law, and also developed a new performance evaluation system for accountability. A complement to our process, the Municipal League has circulated our handbook to several cities as a template. This is an example of what we can do. I want Crossett to be a leader in our state, an example to follow. I believe with continued focus and hard work, that will happen. Serving as mayor is an honor and a tremendous responsibility. A mayor must be approachable, ready to respond to day-to-day needs, know the law, be prepared to make important decisions, and plan for the future. Each day is faced with shifting priorities, responding to citizen concerns, and working with our department heads and employees to make sure Crossett is safe and well managed. Since being sworn in as mayor, I've been proactively planning for Crossett's future. By realigning the budget and prioritizing projects, I've guided our community through these uncertain times. As mayor, everyone has a seat at my table. I'm committed to unity and building relationships with all our citizens, employees, our schools and hospitals, businesses, industries, and our county and state officials. When we share our concerns and our goals, together we will triumph over challenges that come our way. Join me in believing that together we can accomplish great things. I will continue to be focused, work hard, listen, and to champion Crossett, restoring it to a place more people choose to move back home to, like my husband and I did. This is a pivotal time in our history. Your vote in this election will determine the future of Crossett. Let's take this exciting journey together. Thank you, and I appreciate your vote for Mayor Crystal Marshall, number 5 on the ballot. Together we can.
Thank you. I'll go ahead and do all the candidate introductions in the beginning. So number 2.
I'm Sarah Holloman, Stagg. I'm number 2 on the ballot, and I love Crossett, Arkansas. I'm a 1993 graduate of Crossett High School, Eagles Fly High. I then went on to the University of Central Arkansas and graduated from there in 1998 with a degree in mass communication. I left there and enlisted in the greatest army on earth, the United States Army, blah. And then I came back to serve as a reservist in Arkansas and started my 11-year career in the television news media. I did that for 11 years, and at the 11-year mark, I saw where the media was going, and I got out. And I got out to serve the public in hospitality and tourism. I did that for 20-ish years, and then I heard the calling to come home and use all those experiences that I had and come uplift my hometown, Crossett. And so I did. I came home, and I started substitute teaching in the Crossett School District. That evolved to managing the city pool, and then that evolved to, what is the 2 minute? Okay, I have 1 minute left. Okay, that evolved into what I'm doing now, and that's the assistant director of Parks and Recreation. You may not know my name, you may not recognize my face, but maybe you recognize some of the events and some of the work that I've done. In December of 2019, we didn't know what 2020 looked like, but we had a ball drop block party, and that came right from here. We had about 1,000 people on Main Street in Crossett. That's unprecedented. We have the Crafters Fair at the Crossett Farmers Market. I, along with classmate Pamela Taylor, do that. The last Saturday of every month in Cape Sabres, nothing to do with Crossett, Arkansas. So we're down there, we're being neighborly, and we're having a good time. I also do litter patrol. 1 day a week, I'm out picking up the litter. That is a problem not only here, but in other hometowns, and we've got to pick it up. So you're going to hear a lot of words up here. And I want you to listen to those words. You're going to hear plans and ideas and reasons why so-and-so is the best one for the job. And I want you to listen through those words and hear who has the heart and soul for Crossett. My name is Sarah Holloman Stagg. I'm number 2 on the ballot, and I love Crossett, Arkansas.
Number 3. No, we'll save the questions until after the introductions.
First, I'd like to welcome everybody here tonight. Mr. Newton mentioned the fact we're all kind of putting ourselves out on the line, and we are. Everybody's taking the high road. It's not the bad stuff about anybody. It's all what we have to offer, and that's a good thing. So again, I'd certainly like to thank you for that. Want to thank Mandy for, she's, of course, the Crossett Chamber of Commerce Executive Director. Thank you very much, and your staff, the committee, for doing what they've done to set this up tonight. We appreciate that. I'd like to thank you, Mr. Newton, for making the travel down from Little Rock. Appreciate you being here. I certainly want to thank my campaign manager, my wife, my sponsor. I can go on and on. I want to thank Diana for sure. She's the one that kind of keeps me centered. Ultimately, she's the one that says, wait a minute, Dale, you can't post that. Delete it. That's probably number 1. But she does. She keeps me squared away. I want to thank the American Legion Post 111. Thank you guys very much for what you've done helping sponsor tonight's event. With that said, I want to tell you a little bit about myself. Of course, Dale Martini. I'm the proud father of 5 children. I've got a 27-year-old who got married a year ago in July. He and his wife, Sylvia, live in Colorado. I've got a 25-year-old son, Caleb, going to school that lives with me here, lives with us here in Crossett. I've got a daughter, Grace, 22, that's going to Auburn University. And for those of you that know me, know that I'm a roll tide guy, but it's all working out fine. We're getting along well, but she's a warrior. And then Diane and I also have 2 twin boys, 11, Jake and Luke. And they'll start the 6th grade this year when things finally settle down. So I'm very blessed, beyond what I deserve, no doubt. I want to thank also the family and friends and the folks that I've got helping push me and keep me lined out as we go through all this. The experience that I bring to the table, and I think what sets me aside from the others, is that I've got a 40-year career with Georgia Pacific. I'm almost 43 years, 40 of that has been in management. I started out in Peterman, Alabama, where we built a plant there from the ground up. I was involved in that. And after 10 years there at the plant, I'd become plant superintendent. 2 years later, I was asked to transfer here to Crossett. And I came here to manage one of the 2 plywood plants. And for those of you that don't know, this was the largest plywood complex in the world. Not many people can say that they've been a part of that. I can, I'm very proud of it. But I transferred here in 1989. And when I came here to interview, walking in the plant's not what made my decision about whether I was coming to Crossett or not. In fact, the first day of my interview was spent at Felsenthal and the country club and down Main Street where we had the beautiful tennis courts and pool. And I mean, it was a pristine. My first thoughts were how pristine and clean Crossett was. I knew that I could learn to love this town. The second day is when I went into the plywood plant. I'd already made up my mind. So I did. I, of course, came to work in 1989 and managed the plant from manager to complex manager for over 20 years, successfully for 20 years. I left the plywood facility in 2009. And then unfortunately, 2 years later, in 2011, it was shut down permanently. I transferred over to extrusion in 2009. I ended up retiring this year, February of this year, so that I could fish a couple of days a week, hunt if the season came in, and figured I'd have a small honeydew list that I'd have to work on every now and then. Well, that all got turned upside down, and my honeydew list kept me from doing all those other things. But I've certainly enjoyed it. I've been on the council for a year and a half, part of the city council. I wanted to do my part to help move Crossett forward. I'm getting a close note down there, so I'm going to finish up by simply saying, like the other 5 candidates up here, we all want Crossett to be better. We all have good ideas. They're different, but they're good ideas. I challenge each of them, for us as a 5-member committee, to work together to continue moving Crossett forward as we go forward. So, again, thank you all for coming tonight, and look forward to hearing from the other candidates. Thank you.
How many of you in this room have absolutely no idea who I am? There you go. When I walked into this building, I was reminded how much history I had in this building. I attended 13 dance recitals in this building. My daughter Laura, from kindergarten all the way through the 12th grade. I attended quite a few band concerts because I pastored First Baptist Church here for 11 years, and I came to support the kids that played in the band, and so I come and sit and listen. Then my son was in the band, came and watched those. Then I was up on the stage during the awards ceremonies when they gave the scholarships out, because I would represent some of the families that had scholarships, and on behalf of them, I would hand those scholarships to the recipients. The saddest time that I was ever here was when I participated in the funeral service of the 4 young men back in the mid-90s that died on the other side of the Washita River Bridge, if you remember that, 4 young men. I was privileged and honored to be a part and asked to be a part of that particular service. I've lived in 2 major cities, in Houston, Texas, and Fort Worth, Texas. I moved to Houston so I could find my wife. I couldn't find one in Missouri, so I had to move to Texas to find one. Okay, someone that would marry me. I moved to Fort Worth to go to seminary. All the rest of the times I've lived in small cities, small towns. I've lived in 8 small towns. The longest, of course, being Crossett, Arkansas. I moved here in December of '89. Technically moved away in November of 2002 after we finally sold our house and completed our move to Ruston, Louisiana, where I was pastor for 4 years and then moved back to Houston. But my wife and I 2 years ago moved back to Crossett. I'm going to tell you why. Because of all the towns that I've lived in, all the small towns, this is the town that we loved. Now, coincidentally, this is where our grandkids were. But we loved them, but we loved the town.
Because we looked at the idea of maybe not actually living in the town, living somewhere else, but we chose to live in Crossett because this is where our friends were. And I would like to serve as the mayor. When I posed that statement to one of my friends, his only response was, why? So, well, I think I have a knack for organization. I have a knack for administration. I've been able to do those things throughout the years, but I think because I deeply love the town, I love the people. I've been in a lot of the homes here in Crossett. We had 1,200 plus members in our church here when I pastored. And I've been in all those homes. Everyone that would allow me to come in, I went in their homes and visited them. And all the visitors that would visit our church, I went to visit every single one of them that would allow me to come. So I've been in a lot of the homes here in this town. I've just been closed down. I'm going to tell you something, guys. You need to give those to my friend Jimmy White, because when he comes and listens to me preach, he needs those, because that way I'll end on time.
Good evening. I'm Kevin Cosby, and I'd like to say thank you for who made this possible, Mandy, Howard, Stu, American Legion, for PFW, all you guys who love the veterans, who want to support the veterans, who want to see you guys out taking part in everything you can. There's a lot of things I'd like to say. It's going to be hard working in 3 minutes. But really what it comes down to is I was born in this town. I was actually born in Louisville. I think they had a power outage during that time. Raised in this town, my father was a biology teacher, business owner. I had the opportunity to help serve our citizens in this community at an early age. I was in the back alleys, so many homes in Crossett. I got to see the infrastructure going in. I remember working beside leaders of this community that built different neighborhoods. I installed neighborhoods. I saw the sewer systems go in. I saw the drainage ditches go in. I've seen those problems grow over the years. There's so many things that need to be addressed in this town. I drive by them every day, and it wouldn't take much to address them. One man that would be willing to stop, close the windows on the municipal building, would let the rain in there. One man could go up, put a humidifier out, start a process to get it cleaned up. It's a matter of directing our efforts to the things that we need to do. We can't keep putting off, hoping for things to happen. We've depended too long on the community to be supported by one business. We've allowed that business to dictate our directions. I've worked all over. I love Crossett. I want to stay here every day. There's so many things about it that I love. But I've been forced over the years to work on the road. And I've been honored to have had some great jobs. I've helped work disaster for FEMA. I've worked surveillance for the casinos. I've been offered positions when I was the GP in Southern, but I turned them down to stay working with the hourly employees to train on all the medical, the emergency response teams, to be involved as deeply as I could with opportunities. And I will say this, that I won't stop working for the community. I will work every day, every opportunity. I'll jump off, I'll get on the tractor, I'll clean the gutters, the ditches, the streets that need addressing. When we have overlay projects, I'll make sure they're done properly. When we have issues that arise, I'll attack them then. We're not going to have a meeting about having a meeting. We're going to have a meeting about getting some stuff done. We're going to take action. We're going to rectify situations. We're going to bring business in here. We're going to build stuff for the kids. I'm not going to sit here and make my introduction about what I want to do, but there's so many things in Crossett that need to be addressed. I am a graduate of Crossett High School. I have seen good opportunities every year. I have been asked to step up by members of the community I work for, and I said I would. I've watched for far too long people be complacent in this community. I do own a small business. I invested in that business last year. I became the owner. I took it by the reins. My father's not in the best health. I want him to see me be successful in this town. And I'm afraid if we don't make changes, if we don't get better leadership, someone that's aggressive with policies, someone that's aggressive with getting out and talking to the people, find the need. It's easy to communicate. It's hard to take action. I take action. I'm a mover in the shape. I want to see Crossett succeed. I want to work with the people to help make things happen. And we've got a great opportunity. And I ask for you vote August 11th. I love my family and they make everything possible. I'm one of the most blessed individuals out there. The If I don't become mayor, I'm still gonna be working hard in this community. And I want to see us all work together, because everyone sitting on this stage has good ideas and good initiatives. So God bless you all. God bless Crossett. And August 11th, vote for Kevin Cowan.
So we'll start back and we'll go in the order, first 1 through 5, and then we'll rotate, and number 2 will be second on the second round of questions, and we'll keep in that order. So the first question of the night: would you support or oppose the sale of alcoholic beverages at restaurants and/or retail stores in the city of Crossett? Explain your reasons.
That is a very good question, and I'd like to start off by explaining that the role of mayor, the position of mayor, has no more or no less influence on that than any other qualified registered voter in Ashley County. For alcohol to be legal in the city of Crossett and in Ashley County at this time, the requirement is a petition to be started with 38% of the registered voters in Ashley County. When that happens, that would trigger an election. It's also important to know the position of mayor cannot legally be used, or the seat of mayor cannot legally be used to advocate for that or any other ballot initiative. You can use city council meetings, you could use the office of mayor, you could even use a Facebook page. Really right now, the biggest power to make a change with that is with our legislators. It's my understanding that in the next legislative session that they're looking at streamlining that process. Other ballot initiatives only require 15% of the signatures. So they are going to be considering reducing that 38% requirement to 15, as well as looking to see if you could do it citywide instead of countywide. So if that's a passion of yours, I would really encourage you to reach out to your legislators and talk about that with them. But again, the role of mayor, the seat of mayor, has no more or no less influence on that than any other registered voter. Thank you.
Number 2, would you like me to repeat the question?
The question is, do I support the sale of alcohol here? Absolutely not. That does not fit in the personality of Crossett. I worked in the tourism industry where there was a high volume of dependency on alcohol. Doesn't fit here. There is some money that you just don't want to make. And I want to be very clear. There's some money you just don't want to make. The money off of alcohol, it's not always positive. And we may think that on the surface, hey, this is going to bring us money. This is going to be great. I've lived that life. I've worked in that life. It does not fit in Crossett. We should not lose our identity just reaching for the good old greenbacks. We need to focus on what we do best, and that is we raise families. We are wholesome. We are neighborly. We are good people. So no, I don't support the sale of alcohol here.
Number 3.
Here may be a little bit of separation. And I won't say exactly what Crystal said, but I mean, that's correct. I have no more, as mayor, I have no more to say about alcohol sales in Crossett than any of you out in the audience. I mean, it's a vote. It would have to come up with 38% of the registered voters would have to sign a petition for it to get on the ballot. It would have to be voted on. So it would have to be a citizen's vote. If the citizens voted that alcohol sales would be legal in Crossett, I would be behind them. I would be behind what the citizens say. I mean, my wife and I enjoy a glass of wine with dinner occasionally. Jesus drank wine. I mean, overindulgence of anything is bad. There's no doubt. Revenue was mentioned. There are businesses around here that would do well from the sale of alcohol should that come to fruition. So yes, to answer your question, if it was a 50-50 vote and I had to break the tie, I would vote yes.
"25 years ago, I did a great deal of research into alcohol. 1 in 3 people that drink alcohol for the first time are immediately addicted to it. 2 out of those 5, out of 15 people, 5 are immediately addicted. 2 of those 5 would be absolute alcoholics the rest of their lives. 3 of those 5 would be considered what are considered slobbering drunks, social drunks. They drink on a social occasions, but not necessarily get drunk at work and things like that. I recently backed up that with further research and found out that according to all the statistics out there, 12.5% of the entire population of the United States are alcoholics. I owned a rather large insurance agency down in Houston, Texas, and 3 of my customers owned restaurants that served alcohol. 2 of those restaurants, their premiums were $60,000 a year plus, just for insurance. 25% of that premium was because they sold alcohol. Now, one of the things that I do know, being in the financial world and being in the insurance business, is that they did not pass off that insurance cost to just the drinkers. They passed that cost off to everybody that walked through the door. So please understand something, that if alcohol ever gets passed, and you're raving over the income from it and all that kind of stuff, also understand that the first person that drives away from there drunk and kills one of your children, you're not going to be real happy about it, plus the fact that business can be shut down because they're not going to be able to buy insurance for the liability claim that's going to come on. And you're also, every time you go into a restaurant, that extra bill that you get is you're paying part of that insurance cost for all those people that are drinking, because they're not going to pass it off to the drinkers. I'm not against it because I'm a Baptist, because the only time the Baptists don't talk to each other is when they run into each other in the liquor store. Understand that. I'm against it because I don't want your kid being killed by somebody gets drunk at one of the restaurants in Crossett, Arkansas.
Do I support the legalization? As you've heard him say, the mayor doesn't control that issue. That's a valid initiative. The citizens have to decide to. And there's good and bad in every situation. There's never cut and dry situation. There's always going to be that one person that abuses it. There's always going to be those people that take it too far. But we've had alcohol sales in Crossett before. We've had a club, a private club, for many years. I don't know of any incidents where we had any deaths. I hope we didn't. But we have had alcohol sales in Crossett. It's limited in the state, it's limited in the county. I don't know if they can file for another petition to get another license here. I don't know what the numbers are on that. But we do have sales of alcohol. The country club used to have a license. I don't know if it's still active. There's members from the country club here tonight. Mike can tell us if there's still alcohol sales out there. But I do know that there's negatives to a lot of situations where it benefits. Maybe a restaurant or two can come to Crossett, they can serve wine, have beverages with their meals. But if the citizens say that that's what they want, then they vote it in. I'll enforce the policies that are necessary to maintain equal, fair use of the child monitoring. There's good and bad in every situation. People are going to drink. They drive across the state line all the time. We put people at risk by not having them here in some ways. So you start looking at all the benefits and all the negatives, you know, they weigh out. The biggest thing is that as an adult, 21 in America, your civil liberties allow you to exercise them how you want to. So if we voted in, I guess it'd be my responsibility to see that it was enforced. So saying that, that's up to the voters.
Would you support or oppose the annexation of North, South, West Crossett into the city of Crossett, and why?
Back in the 1980s, we tried that and it got violent. So I think that there is an answer here somewhere. I would love for North Crossett, South Crossett, East Crossett, West Crossett, Crossett to all be one, because then we are marketable to more businesses. So the easy answer is yes, I support it. The hard answer is we've got to find a way to make it attractive to all the community members here. I think the disconnect there was the amount of taxes that we pay in Crossett, and North Crossett businesses did not want to add that to their bill. One thing that you'll learn about me, when we're faced with something that we want to do, or when I'm faced with something that I want to do, we're going to find a way to do it. So, yes, I support it, but I support it creatively. There's a way to combine us all for population purposes and keep everybody happy.
Candidate 3.
Annexation. The short story, and Sarah hit on most of it. There's bad information out there. A lot of people are opposed totally because of the tax rate and the things that they would have to do different. The ordinances scare people to death, and many haven't seen them. I don't think it's something we should go out there and just do. By no means, it's something we have to pull the community. We have to talk to the people. We'd have to, more than anything, we'd have to give them the information and let everybody learn as we go through it. They need to understand the positive that comes out of it. And then again, if there are shortcomings, those are things we'd have to work on. But I think it would help the city of Crossett to annex portions, the outer portions. It would help us tremendously with tax revenue and help move us forward into the growth that we want to do.
I think the biggest question is, do they want to come into Crossett? My wife and I lived in a subdivision just outside the city limits of Houston. I would love to be inside the city of Houston because I paid what was called MUD district taxes, municipal utility district taxes. And the taxes on our house down there are $2,500 a year just to have water and sewer. And someone asked me about West Crossett, well, can you annex West Crossett? I said, well, if people in West Crossett want to be annexed and people in Crossett want to annex, then sure. The only problem is we have to provide services, which means we have to provide water and sewer, police, fire, and all those other things. And so it's a question that I would ask, first of all, do the people in North Crossett want to be annexed? Because it's certainly going to put a damper on what they put out in their yard and where they park their boats and trailers and everything else, because of the ordinances we have here in Crossett. It's going to affect them. And they may not want to. And the last thing I think the city should ever do is force anything upon people when the vast majority don't even want it. And so if the people in North Crossett, West Crossett, South Crossett, and anywhere else, East Crossett, we need an East Crossett, whatever happened to East Crossett. Anyway, if they don't want to be a part, then they shouldn't be a part, and the city of Crossett should not vote to annex those people just because we want them in for extra revenue. Big deal. They don't want it, they don't like it. But if they do want it, then let them in.
I think all of us would like to see Crossett grow, so annexing any of the outlying areas would be a benefit for the tax dollars and revenue. The providing of the sources and the resources would probably be a little bit of an issue to work through. But the benefits would be good to the city. The benefit to North Crossett, they just don't see it. I've talked to too many of them recently about it. I've talked to a lot of them in West Crossett. We do have a little higher tax. We do have some restrictions on what you can do. People feel like their freedoms are limited living in the city limits. So that's why they choose to move out of the country. So until we start offering more for the outlying areas to want to take part in, until we start expanding our services outside those areas based on the need, we're probably not going to annex any of it. But if we can build our community, we can offer better resources and better services, and I think those communities that are outlined will be a better part. And then that, I think they would want to be annexed. I know that there are businesses out there that would benefit. I know that the marketing of our entire area would benefit because 10,000, 15,000 voices are louder than 5. So I think everybody on this stage would say we'd love to add the numbers to the population. But until we can get our resources available for those outlying areas to accommodate that growth, I don't think that's a realistic option at the moment. But it is something that we need to look at. We do need to make a plan, and we do need to try to provide those services and those opportunities to those outlying areas so that we do become more attractive. So,
Ms. Marshall.
This is a great question, and I've spent a considerable amount of time recently researching it because we're currently annexing some property south of town owned by Weyerhaeuser for a business deal that's going to be a huge win for the city of Crossett, with not only their tax revenue that will come in, but their permitting and their occupational tax. So I've researched the law and been looking at it from a lot of aspects, but from a legal aspect, we would need to do a survey to determine which area we were considering. And then we would need to define, like Mr. Newberry said, you really have to define the services, and that's a big piece of the puzzle. What services can we afford to provide? I think once we got to that point, the next step is to really reach out to that community. I'd like to hear from the people who are opposed to it more than anyone. I'd like to come to the table and just have a discussion, look at it from their perspective. I think we need to look at it from all angles. How could it benefit Crossett? How would it benefit them? And what concerns do they have? There's a possibility of grandfathering in some different things within the ordinances. I think it could be a huge win for the city of Crossett. But again, it's really a negotiation, and it starts with relationships. And you've got to reach out and connect with people. Take the time to understand where they're coming from. At that point, if you did decide to move forward, the council could pass an ordinance that would trigger an election. All of the people that live in the area that would be annexed would be allowed to vote, as well as all the citizens across it. I believe in the democratic process, and that's what would need to happen. If the people, all of the collective people wanted it to happen, we would make it happen. And we would show up on a lot more businesses' radar. They run queries now, and we are not hitting their radar because our population is too low. It's not a true representation of Crossett. We're about 10,000, and we're showing up right now at 5,500, which may come back less in the near future. So there are definitely some tremendous perks. We could get more business, we could get more tax revenue, but again, it's up to the people, and it's up to relationships and real talk, real listening, and coming together to see what the best course of action is. Thank you.
Martini, what are some ways you believe that the city of Crossett can improve?
Gosh, let me count the ways. And again, I've said before, but with 5 people up here, there's a number of ideas, and of course the people in Crossett as well. The first thing, and again, this shouldn't be high on the priority list, but I feel that it is. The first thing we need to do to improve Crossett is regain the trust that we as a city government want. When we tell somebody we're going to do something, we do it. Don't give them a timeline to pander and tell them what we think they want to hear. We need to stick to our guns and do what we say we're going to do. So regaining the trust is one biggie, though that should be expected. But number 2, and probably the biggest item would be the fact that we need to grow our economy. We need to attract business. We need to tell our story here in Crossett. Well, we're in a predicament now that we've never been in over 60 years. I mean, it's been a Georgia Pacific town. Georgia Pacific has supported us. They've been there. We took it for granted. And we're at one time, there were 3,000 plus direct employees of Georgia Pacific. Now we're in the 500 range. So we need to tell a story. We need to tell a story of the specifically to wood products companies, I would say, because of our timber basin. We've got a timber base here that, like nobody else, and it's not utilized. Even the paper mill is not using the pine timber here from Crossett. They're shipping pulp in. So we've got a timber base that's very attractive, and then we've got a labor force here, technically and experienced, that is like no other as well. with all the people that have been laid off. I mean, this is home to a lot of people. There are a lot of people that have moved away or are driving back and forth every day. So I think the economy and bringing businesses in is huge, is, ultimately the number one item for any of the candidates up here on the stage to try to work through and continue to grow Crossett.
This is the type of question that your wife asks you and you say, honey, how do I love you? Let me count the ways. Where do you want to start? I agree with Dale. I moved here in 1989, December 7th, 1989. And when I drove into town, the town was immaculate. It was beautiful. When I moved back here 2 years ago, I didn't recognize the town. The GP doesn't even mow their yard anymore. The bushes are all grown up. The flowers are no longer there. I'm actually embarrassed for the company. And I just kind of wondered if the people over in Atlanta, Georgia even know that it looks that way. And then we have all the dilapidated houses. And my wife and I drove around the entire city of Crossett and counted. And I gave some of them the benefit of the doubt because it looked like the yard had been mowed in the last month. But I counted 108 dilapidated houses, abandoned houses. I wrote a big thing and paid for it to be in the paper just to answer my question for that week because I'm serious about that issue. What can we do? I understand some people are behind and things like that. Some of those houses have been abandoned. I talked to one guy, that house has been abandoned for 5 years next to him. That's a long time to give somebody opportunity to turn that house around. Let's do something. Let's fix it up. Jobs. What are we going to do about jobs? I mean, we're losing jobs. I understand we're gaining a few, but we're losing jobs. The advantage that I have is I have a network of people, friends of mine that have been major players in major corporations. I have a friend of mine by the name of John that was at one time was in charge of the entire energy department for ExxonMobil. And he's the kind of guy that I can call up at any time because I have his number. He lives on a farm out in Katy, Texas now. And I can call him up and say, okay, John, I need to know who you know. Who do you know that I can call? We got a lot of trees sitting around here. I know they're owned by warehouses. We got a lot of trees. Somebody ought to be able to do something with those trees. We got a great Felsenthal district. What can we do with that? Somebody was telling me about Lake GP. I'm wondering why. And they said, well, you can't really use it because of all the stumps out there. I'm thinking, they make saws to cut stumps out, of lakes. Why can't we cut all those things down and start using it? And I got the close sign again. So, Jimmy, you need that sign.
Mr. Cosby?
A lot of ways we can improve Crossett. First thing is we got to make it more inviting, more enjoyable for the people that are here. We've had people leaving. We're going to be able to bring some people back. We want to create jobs. We have to. There's a lot of ways to stimulate it. But what we can do immediately is make it more inviting for us to enjoy it. We can build small, inexpensive facilities, bike trails. There's tons of opportunities there. We start getting bike trails, handicap access, we get our sidewalks in order. We make it more presentable and have family activities and more family-friendly things to do. You start building jobs around some of those events. You expand on classic cruisers. We start holding hot rod shows. We got a history of hot rods right here in Crossett. We get people coming from 3 states around here twice a year. You start getting 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 people in different times. I don't want to turn it into a tourist mecca, but we do need to market what we have. So as we develop these multi-use facilities in the outlying areas of Crossett, whether it's on private property in conjunction with those individuals, there's a lot of in-kind labor services available. People are willing to work. There's sweat equity we're going to be able to put in to many community projects, and I'm ready to get going on them. I've got world-famous leaders that want to come and help develop youth programs. I've got Troy Burleson, I'm going to call his name numerous times because he's going to be down there and he's going to help us build youth programs. He's in the Martial Arts Hall of Fame. He's sitting now as a mayor of a small town and as a chief of police, or he was a mayor, he's chief of police now. But he trains the elite. He wants to come down. He's one of many. Road Trails wants to help us build bike trails for the kids. The outlying area, we go ahead and enhance what we have. We make it more inviting. We make it more enjoyable. We make people want to be here, and then people start coming. But we create jobs, we create opportunities, we help expand small businesses, but we take what we have, we put a little polish on it, we improve our offerings, and we make everybody a little more satisfied because they're not as poor, they're not as complacent. We get them involved, and then we build on it. But we don't go build it. We take the momentum, and we build. We have opportunities that come to Crossett because they hear about the good times we're having. They They see more kids getting out doing more things. We mentor more kids because they're more involved in the community. We start a few more clubs around here. We get more people involved. We're doing things that are enjoyable, and we grow our community through a sense of pride and accomplishment. Thank you.
Ms. Marshall?
Every morning when I drive to work, I think, how can I make Crossett better today than it was yesterday? And every day when I drive home, I think, how can I do even better tomorrow? I'm passionate about improving Crossett, and there's so many different directions that we can go, so many ways to approach it. A huge one is building the relationships. It's so important to me that everyone understand. Every single citizen is important to me. I'm the mayor of all the people, not one certain group. That trust, like Dale said, is so important. It's the foundation of everything. Jobs are also critical. It's so important that we grow our economy. We must diversify our risk. We never want to be in a situation again where one industry having a closure causes a ripple impact so deeply across our whole town. We've got to bring in multiple mid-sized industries, so if that were to happen, we can absorb it and move on. We also need to make our amenities more accessible. I definitely see that we've got a lot of beautiful properties in Crossett. We need just to make it a little bit easier for everybody to get out and use them. Broadband internet is so vital. We have got to move forward with that or we're going to be left behind. Luckily, our state and our federal government have realized that rural communities such as Crossett are getting left behind, and I'm midstream right now of working on applying for a grant for Crossett, so we get to move forward with our children in school, with our telehealth, with industry. Industries and business need that to function. And how many people do you know might want to move back to Crossett like my husband and I did if they could work remotely? I know corporate Walmart does that, and with COVID-19, there's so many businesses out there that will allow you to telework. I'd like to see more people moving back to Crossett, taking advantage of what we have here. And we obviously need to continue working on our dilapidated properties. It's a long legal process, but we are committed to working through it. I also plan to work with our legislators just to see if there's any possibility of streamlining the legal process. I'm a staunch believer in the Constitution, but I also realize that reviews are necessary to see if there's room for improvement. The slow pace of that process really cripples municipalities like Crossett, and you see the effects. Thank you.
Ms. Holland?
How to make Crossett better. That's something that I've been working on actively for the past year as your assistant director of Parks and Recreation. The things that we've been doing have been things that I hear that y'all want. And so we hit the ground running, and we've done that for a year. And this is a process that is slow because this is a process of getting Crossett's pride back. When I grew up here, we were proud to be Crossett Eagles. We had a rivalry with Hamburg. It was great. It was fun. And you were proud to be from Crossett. Now we've got kids here that live here that go to Hamburg school. That's unacceptable. We need to reinstill in us the pride that we have, that we live here. After we get that in place, and we are proud to be from the greatest little small town on earth, we need to spread the word outside of our borders, and that means tourism. We need to get people who don't live here to want to come here. Maybe not to live here, maybe eventually to live here, but maybe just to come visit and then come back and visit and then come back. And every time they come, they're spending their dollars and our revenue goes up. So we've got to reinstill our own pride in our home, and then we've got to take that pride outside of our borders. We'll grow.
Don't be mad at me, but there's a fan over next to me. I'm fine. But then again, I'm old.
What are your qualifications to run a city?
Qualifications to run a city. I pastored the First Baptist Church here in Crossett, Arkansas. That ought to be something. You know, I've wrote about this. You're going to read about it in the paper, but there's a big difference between a manager and a leader. A manager typically works for a big-sized company and does what the people up above him tell him to do. Never heard. And anytime that you get out of step, you're then out of a job. unless something miraculously works and you make the company a lot of money. But you usually have to have permission before you do that. Being a leader is totally different. It's what being a pastor of a church is like, because you're trying to lead people that you have absolutely no control over. And this is what I've done most of my life as a head football coach. I started a football program in Troy, Missouri in 1974. I was their very first football coach. You can look it up on the internet and find out. Well, they may not print my name. I don't know. It's too long ago, 50 years ago. But the thing is that I had to start that football program with 2 assistants. I coached the 7th, 8th, 9th, JV, and varsity with 2 assistant coaches. You try that sometime. Plus, I had to wash all their uniforms because the AD, the athletic director, wouldn't let the uniforms go home. Even the practice gear wouldn't let them go home. So every Saturday and Sunday, that's all I did was wash. The whole thing was, and then I was a sales manager for Prudential, and then I became a pastor, and I owned a business down in Houston, an insurance agency, had employees. And I've learned throughout the whole process that you have to lead people, and you lead people through inspiration, motivation, and encouragement. And my middle name today is encourager. That's what I want to be. God didn't gift me with the spiritual gift of encouragement. I have to work at it. But I want to encourage people. That's what I do, and that's what helps me. Because when someone comes into my office and I just want to listen to what they have to say, because if you listen to them long enough, they'll tell you the real problem. And so I want to listen to people and work with people, and that's what I want to do. And I want them to be so encouraged. And like I shared on the radio program this week, I want to be a breath of fresh air every morning when I come into the office, when they come into work. Anybody that works in the whole city, I want them to listen. I want to do what's best for the people. And I got the close sign again. Sorry, thank you.
Mr. Cosby?
Someone recently told me that I had to run for mayor. I said I didn't really think it was what I needed to do. They said they've been helping train me all my life. That person's been a business owner here, and I have respect to them. I don't put a sign in their yard because they're friends with some of the candidates here. But I'm going to tell you, I grew up working beside Les Black before he became the mayor. I worked for him personally. I worked for numerous mayors in different capacities, but I did work for the city of Crossett. I was one of the first employees to start reviewing policy procedures on chemical storage, work safety. We had an employee at the park fall out. She needs chemicals. Lucky she didn't die. I worked in the casinos. I was hired in surveillance because I was a pretty good observer. I could recognize problems. I was paid to correct them before they became a real issue. I did theft detection. I worked in 2 different casinos. I didn't particularly care for some of the negatives that I was speaking of earlier, which good and bad with everything. But I've worked with FEMA. I've managed crews, not just for my personal business, but I've run crews in multiple states. I've been on the board of directors with the American Petroleum Institute when I was in North Dakota. I was selling equipment, but we were doing a lot of good for the community. We wanted to sell the oil industry in a favorable light. So I spent 5 years out there doing that, but came back to Crossett, bought a business from my parents. I've always been in that business. I've worked closely with a lot of the members of the city, a lot of the employees. I've got a good working relationship. I've got a good fundamental understanding of the infrastructure. I've got a good understanding of the city codes. My father had sat on city council. I studied the code book for years. I'm willing to learn what it takes for what I don't know, and I'm willing to incorporate the people that I need to have to make sure that we make the right decisions. We work with the municipal league. We have a city attorney. We have a bookkeeper, accountant. A lot of people help make good decisions. So I'm approachable. I like working with others, but I like knowing that we conquered the challenge, that we work through the obstacles together, and we find a better solution. I feel accomplished when I really get done and look back and it's been a good job. Everybody can take pride in it. So let's build on this pride. Thank you.
Ms. Marshall?
As many of you may know, I grew up in a very difficult childhood. I learned tenacity at a young age, and it served me well. I put myself through college, where I graduated with honors. I studied abroad 2 different times, one in Santiago, Chile, and for 2 semesters in Finland. That led me to a degree in computer information science from Missouri Southern State University in Joplin, Missouri. Yes, that's where the big tornado happened. From there, I transitioned into a very long and gratifying career with corporate Walmart, where I was served in management. I led teams of over 100 people located in multiple different countries. I had a team in Mexico, I had a team in India, a team in Bentonville. I worked very diligently in project management, process management, system design, problem solving, and one of the biggest skills that I think I really honed in there is how to influence people who don't directly report to you. I learned very early on in a building of 4,400 people that it was nearly impossible to make everyone do everything that you needed to get done. I also have an extensive background in municipality rules and regulations. I'm a certified municipal official with over 40 hours of training. I've been twice certified for my continuing education, and I've been running the city of Crossett for 3 months now. Before that, I spent almost 4 years on city council where I was heavily involved, appointed to several committees, and worked very closely with our department heads. We have great synergy. We've made great efficiency improvements. I'm sure you've noticed some of the improvements across town. You know, we're just getting started. We have no intention of slowing down. And we're just really excited to be able to get done all of the things that all of us see out there that need to get done. I also have extensive connections through the state with our state legislators, the municipal league lawyers are in my phone, the grant writers. It's just really important not only to have the relationships here in Crossett, but the relationships all across the state. Everything in this world gets done through relationships. Thank you.
Ms. Holloman?
I take issue with the question. The mayor doesn't run the city, the people do. It is your voice in my ears, I'm just a public servant, that lets me know what you want, and then I find ways to get it done. I've done that for the past year as your assistant director of Parks and Recreation. Y'all told me that there was nothing to do. I brought things to do. That's not going to stop. Y'all told me that the streets were dirty. I started picking them up, and I enlisted the help of other clubs and organizations. That's not going to stop either. But y'all seem to want to hear about management. I manage a biker bar in Shreveport, Louisiana, and that's hardcore management right there. I also managed a newsroom with 5 news teams, and at any given moment, even after a whole day of laying out everything pretty, you've got your logistics and all your ducks in a row, and everything looks good, at the drop of a hat, it could explode, and you've got to reroute everything, and you can't lose your head. You got to go. I did that. I did it for 11 years. So, management, leading a town, I'm going to listen to you. You're going to tell me what you want, and I'm going to find ways to do it. It's just that simple.
Mr. Martini.
What prepares me to be able to run the city? I want a little kind of a play on what David said a few minutes ago, talking about a manager and a leader. A manager is somebody that makes everybody else think he's important or she's important. A leader makes everyone else feel like they're important. I think that's crucial and very important to whoever it is that leads the city. My experience has come, obviously, as I've mentioned before, my experience comes with Georgia Pacific. I led a Fortune 500 company successfully for more than 20 years. I dealt with personnel issues on a daily basis, safety, budgetary needs, maintenance, preventative maintenance programs. I mean, all the things that kind of entail what a city is made of is what I've done. And, you know, basically it was, you know, almost 7 times the size of what the city employees would comprise of. So my experience with the company, and you know, it's not a buddy-buddy system. With Georgia Pacific, I've worked basically for one company my entire life. For over 4 years, there's not a lot of people that can say that. There are several here in Crossett that have retired, but to be able to do that, I've had to prove my wares my entire career. It wasn't a buddy-buddy system that, you know, I was there because I knew somebody. That wasn't it at all. So with a city and managing the city itself, we're having to prove ourselves to you, the citizens, we the citizens. And again, it kind of gets back to what I said earlier. Do what you say you're going to do. We're going to make mistakes. We're going to learn from them. But do what we say we're going to do. We've got to instill that pride. We've got to instill that trust that we lack solely. And granted, we're going to make improvements. Whoever's up here, I know is going to move Crossett forward, is going to make a better city than what we've had, just simply because we're all pumped up about doing it, and we're all going to be helping each other. One person we're going to have one winner and 4 losers, if you will. Having said that, we're going to have to work together. We've got too much experience and knowledge up here not to utilize it, not to pull each of ourselves into a committee or into a group that's going to help Crossett. It's extremely important that we do that, and I'm definitely going to do my very best to lead us and get us to that improvement and growth that we're talking about.
Mr. Gossett. What have you learned from the pandemic? How would you plan and prepare our city for future outbreaks?
Well, I had a strong past of emergency management. I was an EMT for Georgia Pacific. I've always been involved in veteran training. I've got quite a bit of extensive training in mass casualty and incident command. And I would say that as a nation, we're all caught off guard. It shows just how ill prepared we were. Our lines of communication started breaking down, and our supply lines, our supply of perishables. We're sending people to the store to get 2 gallons of milk when they need 10. There's no shortage of it. So what I'd like to say is that we need to look at it. We need to learn from where we were short. We need to be better prepared. If the masks were effective, boy, it'd be good if we could hand them out to everybody. But I think the mask mandate might be putting us under a false sense of security because it doesn't stop the transmission. You need to read the details. I'm OSHA 10 and 30 trained, and as an EMT, I can tell you, you got to have better coverage to protect from the exposure. So saying that, we do need to learn from where we were weak. I see Bo out there, they were challenged to make sure they had adequate PPE when they were making their calls. These guys were doing everything they could to make sure they were being as safe as they could. And as we learn from this pandemic, we'll be able to better acclimate for the future. But saying that, we're going to have to make sure that we adopt better policies. We shouldn't have to handle public doors. We should have free opening doors. They don't have to be automatic, but they should outswing. We should never have to touch them. You don't want to go in the restroom and handle anything and be touching. Every public building should have open doors without having to touch them. So hand-to-hand transmissions ought to be eliminated. Just the public building touching the doors. Those are building policies that have to be adopted. But nationally, that's a policy we ought to look at. But locally, we have to set an example of how we're going to manage it. We've been fortunate. Our healthcare facilities and our elderly care groups have kept it down. And praise God they have. But we all have to take a better understanding of hygiene and make sure that we're doing what we need to do to stay safe, build our immune systems, and everybody encourage better wellness to our loved ones. So saying that, we do have a lot to learn. Let's make sure our resources are allocated properly. Thank you.
Ms. Marshall.
Since the pandemic began, I've led the COVID-19 task force for the city of Crossett, and Mayor McCormick appointed me to that. It's been an honor to help our team. We've learned so much together. First and foremost, from a municipal employer standpoint, we've got to work in sales of people. We've got to work in ways that regardless of who happens to get an illness that all of us are capable of getting, that we're still able to provide the services to the city of Crossett. That was quite the juggling act and took a lot of foresight. We have to make sure we have ambulances that can run. We have to have police that can respond to emergencies. Your garbage needs picked up regardless. And as we've all seen, it can really sweep through communities quickly. So that was an adjustment we made early on and we still have in place. It also really highlighted the need for broadband internet. We all know that we struggle here in Crossett, Arkansas. I sat over in economic development myself when Windstream had a town hall, and so many from the business community came and stood up and said, we cannot function because our internet is too unreliable. So it really pushed to the forefront what we already knew was an issue. We've got to make sure that our kids can learn from home, that we can access medical care from home, that we can work from home. People need their jobs. They need to be flexible in the ways that they can accomplish their work and still get paid. So it really pushed that to the forefront. And I also like Kevin's idea of seeing if we could just install more amenities that don't require touch. So the pandemic has really changed a lot of things and taught us a lot of things, and maybe most of all, how much we really need each other and need to rely on each other. Thank you.
Ms. Holloman?
COVID-19 has taught me that Crossett is strong. Look around at the rest of the world, it is absolutely going crazy. And then look around at us. We're still standing, we're still finding ways to conduct business, we're finding ways to go back to school, we are finding ways to still gather. So I've learned that Crossett is strong. However we go back to school or however we open up 100%, again, that's irrelevant. Not irrelevant because it's unimportant, but irrelevant because no matter what Crossett figures out, it's going to figure out something, and it's going to be standing at the end of all this. And then the next thing that comes up, we're going to stand up again, and the next thing we're going to stand up. Because y'all, we're strong. Like I said, look around at the rest of the world. Their mask, no mask argument, and whatever they're doing. We're not. We chose to circle around our hospital and pray over our heroes. I mean, that's what we did. We chose to have church out in parking lots instead of closing the doors and wondering what to do. We are strong, we will move forward, and that's what I learned from COVID-19.
Mr. Martini?
Okay, with reference to masks and what we should or shouldn't, it almost depends on what you watch, listen to, or read today. It's changing daily. I mean, obviously, wearing masks is a thing to do. We have to do that. Doing the sanitizing, all of those things are extremely important. But we're going to go by CDC guidelines. For liability reasons, as a city, we couldn't change that. We couldn't go out on our own and just do what we think is best. We're gonna go by the CDC guidelines and follow those, to the best of our ability. It's extremely important that that my family, don't take it for granted. Don't think that anybody is immune to having that happen to you. My family was involved. We were quarantined for 14 days. So it can happen. Nobody got sick, but they tested positive. This has been a month or so ago. So it can happen. But just doing what the experts, we're not experts in that field. We've got to listen to those experts and do what they say. We'll take that information, we'll utilize it, we'll put our group together, make sure that everybody is adhering to and following those guidelines to the best of our ability.
Mr. Newberry.
I've met some experts before. Sandy and I have some friends here in Crossett that have a clock in their kitchen up above one of their doors, their exit door. Some of you have been in that house, and you probably have seen that clock. It's been broken for I don't know how many years, 5 years, 6 years, 7 years. All it needs is battery. They haven't fixed it. It's stuck on 5 till 11. It's right once every 12 hours. And that's what I think about some of these experts. They're right once in a while, because all the stuff that we heard when this first came out is different than today, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And it's going to change as we get going. I'm just praying for a vaccine. They're in the third stage of it. Hopefully, if it all works out, we all get vaccines, and then we're going to say in a few years, what pandemic? But the whole thing is, there's a whole lot of common sense that has to come into play. And if you feel safe, then wear a mask. If you don't feel, if you feel safe, whatever you want to do, but be conscious of the people around you that don't feel safe. And that's why I wear a mask. It's not because I think that I need it, because I'm not scared of the COVID-19. If God wants to take me home and he wants to do it through the COVID-19, then come on, Lord, bring it on. But at the same time, I'm conscious of the people around me. And when I see people that I know that are standing pretty far off because I don't have a mask on, I realize I probably need to have a mask. And I do it for them, not for me. But at the same time, if I'm mayor, I'm going to make sure that our city employees are as protected as possibly can. I was over in the courthouse the other day and talking to one of the administrators over there, and they had bought a special shield just for this one person there because that woman was pregnant. And I said, praise Jesus, there's somebody that's thinking of somebody else. Now, whether or not that actually makes a difference, because they could go out to Walmart or Jade's or Brookshire's or, wherever and catch it from somebody else, but at least they're being protected. And that would be my role, is to protect the employees, protect the citizens as much as I can, based on somebody that seems to be right at the moment. You know what I mean? Because we just don't know, do we? Thank you.
We're at the point now where I will draw a question, and then following that, I get the privilege of asking a question of my own, and then we'll have closing statements from each candidate. What is most important, acting in response to the will of the people, or acting in the way that you believe is the best course of action for the well-being of our community? Please explain. And we're back to candidate number 1, Ms. Marshall. It's a long one, so I'll repeat. What is most important, acting in response to the will of the people, or acting in the way that you believe is the best course of action for the well-being of our community?
That's a tough one. I think first and foremost, again, it comes to relationships. I think you've really all got to take the time to all come and sit to the table and really take the chance to hear each other and see it from each other's perspective. It's really important not to be there ready with your rebuttal, but to really listen, to actively listen and hear where they're coming from. I think it's important that you have a lot of discussion with as many people as possible to try to come to a consensus. At the end of the day, I do think that you have to do what is the right thing to do. I think a lot of prayer, a lot of self-reflection, and above all else, listening to your people and trying your best to come to a general consensus. Throughout these difficult times the last few months, I personally have dealt with several situations where the answer wasn't always clear. But I had to do what ultimately was the best thing to do for Crossett. You can't do that without listening to the people. You may, at the end of the day, you may come to a point where you agree to disagree, but you still maintain respect and you maintain that relationship, and it's so important. Thank you.
Ms. Holloman.
About 9 out of 10 of y'all know what I'm going to say. Community is most important. It is. When the community's not here, the individual has nowhere to be. So simply put, community before individual. Absolutely.
Mr. Martini.
That is a good question. The will of the people is always extremely important. I mean, we've got to look at that, and then doing what we think is right may not be the same thing. If I'm left with a predicament like that, I'm not going to, Dale Martini's not going to get over and make that decision. I would never do that. I want to pull some diverse people, diverse groups together with different opinions. I mean, from each end of the spectrum, pull them together, have that discussion. Discuss the pros and cons. Talk about what we should do and why. When I've done that and we've vetted it out and we've all mutually come to an agreement, that's the only time I would make that decision. I'm not going to go off the cuff just because I think it's right. I mean, I've heard people say that a committee is only there to do what I say we need to do. That's not it at all. That should never happen. Like I say, different opinions and ideas are extremely important. That's what makes us better. So that's what I would do. We come up with a decision from that group of folks.
Mr. Newberry.
You can read a full detailed answer to my answer to this particular question actually next week in the News Observer. I sat in a city council meeting last Monday night, a week ago Monday night. And something happened there that really disturbed me. And it was the increase of the garbage collection service by $1 so that no one would be charged extra cost for pickup. In other words, now you can put trash out on the thing, you don't get charged 15 or 20 or it's up to $75, whatever it is. I know because it cost me one time $20 to have something hauled out. Now, I am not in disagreement with that. Problem is that the council made the decision. If I'm mayor, what I'm going to do is 2 weeks prior to the city council meeting, we're going to have an open forum for anybody that wants to come. And we're going to talk about the things that need to come before the city. Because I think that the city ought to have the input of what's coming before the council. And for example, I talked to a lady just the other day, didn't have a clue who her city councilmen were. I didn't know who mine were until 2 months ago. Never heard from them, didn't know. Didn't even know what board I was in. And so now, yeah, I'm an educated guy, I'm a dumb guy in that regard, I guess. But the thing is, I didn't know. Nobody ever contacted me. Nobody welcomed me to the city, you know what I mean? Thing was, well, people did, but not those people. But I don't think that we ever hear from the city on things that are going to affect them monetarily very often. And I think that the city ought to have some kind of input. Now, I understand something. It's going to cost us something if the water main breaks out in front of your house. We're not going to take a vote on that. We're not going to take city input. We're going to go fix it, right? But at the same time, and something that is not necessary to be decided that night, I think the city ought to have some input. An open forum, what do you think? And if the vast majority of the people said, nah, we don't want to be charged that $1, then why should we be charging the $1? Just because a few people are happy about it? No, I think the city ought to predominate. Because you're seeing, if you read this in a couple of weeks, I'm going to talk to next week, you'll find out the difference between being an ambassador for the city and being a dictator for the city. An ambassador does not speak for the city, it speaks on behalf of the city. Just read it, you'll find out.
Mr. Crossett.
I believe as an elected official, you have a duty and an obligation to represent the people. You should perform your duties based on the will of the people. I believe in transparency, though. I think we have too much government overreach. But I do think that there are times when we don't explain it well enough. We don't give enough people opportunity to make a well-educated decision to better sway the opinion regarding certain situations. As Mr. Newberry said, it's good to give a little more notification to let people know about changes that they're going to be experiencing that sometimes will be a little bit painful. Sometimes we have to make those choices. The council was elected to make those decisions for the people. So saying that, sometimes we're faced with a tough choice. Sometimes we have to agree to disagree. But to paint a better picture, to help more people understand, is what we need to do. We need to get more people involved so that we can form a better opinion and use that opinion based on facts. We've all got the ability to reason. So let's gather our information. Let's decide the best course of action. And if we all have to take a dose of medicine, let's take it together. So I do believe in transparency, though. I do believe that we need to have more people that can have an open eye on the situations that are happening and on the measures that are being taken for the public. So, thank you.
When Mandy called me about hosting, I said the only thing I would like as a fee is the ability to ask one question. And she agreed. So I struck a hard bargain. But this is a question that I've asked all over the state of Arkansas and communities large and small in various forms. So with that, candidates' talent drives economic development. The biggest part of the talent pipeline is K-12 public education. 31% of Crossett students are considered ready in reading. 42% are considered not close. As mayor, what can you do to improve the literacy of Crossett's people? And we'll start with candidate 2, Ms. Hall.
Those statistics aren't just numbers for me, those are little kids' faces, because I substitute taught in our elementary school, and they are absolutely true, those numbers are. What can I do as mayor? Wow. Well, as Assistant Director of Parks and Recreation, I, along with my Uncle Bill Runyon, have started to build tiny free libraries. We've got to get kids excited about reading. We've got to enlist programs that get parents excited to read to children. Reading is a big deal to me. My mama was a reading teacher when I was, what, 4? They walked in to check on me at bedtime, in the dark, upside down. The book was upside down. I was reading. Reading is very important. If we can give our kids nothing else, the ability to read is something we can give them. So I will do whatever it takes to fix those numbers. And again, those numbers are more than numbers to me. They are faces. So I'll do whatever it takes.
Mr. Martini?
I believe in the area of literacy, I think probably most of us here are extremely proud of what's happening now. We've made a push. We've got a new school superintendent, Mr. Gary Williams, and an outstanding staff. We've got a high school that's like, I mean, many colleges can't even compare to what we've got now. So there's a lot of pride instilled there. We've got good folks that are teaching our kids now. I've got 3 that graduated. I've got nephews and nieces, 3 of which got scholarships. A niece was a salutatorian a couple of years ago. So I'm very proud of what they've done. They've gone on to go to college and have done well. If I didn't think the school system was growing and improving and continuing to get better, my 2 11-year-old twin boys wouldn't go there. So I don't think there's anybody here that can't say that we're definitely moving in the right direction. We've got a good bunch now. It's just now we've got to prove our wares, and we've got to see what actually comes from what we've got going on. So we've got a good group doing it for us.
Mr. Newberry?
As mayor, you have a lot of people available to you, the whole city of Crossett. And in this regard, the whole area around Crossett, anybody that's in the Crossett public school system. We do have a great superintendent. I know. I played golf with him. We decided 2 things. We weren't going to talk about the mayor's race. We weren't going to talk about the schools while we played golf, and we didn't, and it worked out really good. But I've known Gary for, since I've been back in Crossett. I really like the steps that he's taking, and I think it's going to improve. I dealt with this reading issue back when I was the pastor of First Baptist Church back in the mid-90s. I have a wife, she told me not to mention her name, so I won't, but my wife taught our grandchildren to read, because she was a reading and language arts teacher for many years, a number of years down in Texas. She also taught here in Crossett when we lived here. But she taught our grandkids to read before they went into kindergarten, like Sarah's mom did her. You see, kids can learn to read, they just have to have someone paying attention to them. And when you have a classroom of 20 students, the teacher cannot pay individual attention to those particular children. So what we need are volunteers, like people like my wife, other people that have retired from the school system, other people that care to learn how to teach these kids. My wife taught, and I'm going to brag on her a minute, but they had a big test like they have in Arkansas at the end of the year. And she had 25 students, and all of her kids in reading and language arts passed what they called at that time the tax test. Every one of them passed. Why? Because she taught them to concern. That's what we need. And as mayor, I would just simply work with Gary, as long as he stays superintendent, coming in, and let's find out these resources out here, and then let's make space available. We got to get past this pandemic junk and all this kind of stuff. But at the same time, why don't we utilize that? Where someone comes up to the school and volunteers an hour, pulls one of those kids out of classroom, pulls them out of something, and teaches them, works with them on the phonics, works with them on the word identification, gee, that word work. What's wrong with that? Why can't we work when we're retired? I mean, I could probably, if I didn't have that word close sign, talk about me coming up and helping out.
Mr. Cosby?
Of all the questions, that's probably one of the best ones, because the youth are our future. Our children need to be better prepared. I've got a 4-year-old that's learning how to read now. We've missed out on being in the school this year or this past year, because of COVID. But I'm trying to be active in their school. I go to school, I read to them. I'd like to start a reading initiative. I say we incentivize the students so that they can start reading. Let's put a little money into it. Let's give them a cash initiative. It's an investment in the future. If we teach a kindergartner or a first grader to read, and they take a little pride in it, and we give them a reward, let's put a plaque up somewhere. Let's make an opportunity for them to show off what they've accomplished. Because everyone likes to know that they've had hard work to get there, but they made it. And once kids understand that they can read, they keep going. They entertain opportunities in books. They have a vivid imagination. Electronic devices are nice, but we're just opening a book, lets you grasp a little better concept, lets you use your mind more. And so I say that if I'm married, I'd like to make an appearance in all the schools on a regular basis. I'd like to read to the kids. I'd like to encourage them to read to me. Because when a kid reads to an adult, boy, it just brightens their day. It makes them have an opportunity to share something that they've learned, they benefit, they grow. And hopefully they'll grow into a teacher or a professional that comes back to Crossett. And I say we try to instill a better sense of pride in our teachers. It's unfortunate that so many of our teachers they're present, but they're absent. Too many of them are there, they've got their own problems, and they're not involved enough. But, we do have opportunity to improve the lives of those teachers and those students. Our children are the future, and we need to put more emphasis on those children. We need to bring more of them back here, well-educated and prepared to be successful citizens. Thank you.
Ms. Marshall.
So many of you know I have 29-year-old girls, Reese and Reagan, and since the day they started kindergarten, I have been heavily involved in our school system. I've spent days, weeks, months in there, different years, just it's all up to the teacher. Different teachers have different styles, but as many days as they would let me be there, I was there. I spent time reading to the kids, letting them read to me, watching the class and letting her take them and give them extra time. I supported them every way I could. I showed up for the bags of corn dogs on 50-cent corn dog days. I tried to help them be successful in school by teaching them in math. You do every question 3 times. I don't care if you think you have the right answer, do it 3 times. To just be another support system, because our school systems are understaffed. That's just the reality. So that is a huge focus of mine. In fact, many of you here and watching at home, I may know your children better than I know you. And I'm often said I'm rewarded in hugs from the kids. They're just wonderful, and we all just need a little help sometimes, especially when we're growing up. I've spent every year since I've been in Crossett volunteering at the summer reading program at the library. It's an incredible thing to take your kids to and an honor to support. And I'm also just kicking off an initiative in partnership with the Crossett School District with me and Mr. Williams, and we're starting an ambassador program to help our kids be involved in government. And you're giving me an interesting idea to put a reading spin on that, because we're still trying to determine the criteria of who's selected. But the concept is that at least 1 to probably 4 kids for each age group, starting 4th grade through 12th, would be formally appointed as an ambassador to their peer group, to where they could bring forth the ideas, questions, and concerns for their peers to government to help us make better decisions. The decisions we make will affect them longer than anyone else. It's also a great opportunity to educate them on how municipal government works. What is the role of a mayor? What is the role of a council person, a city attorney, a clerk treasurer? So we're really excited to kick that initiative off, and you've just got the wheels turning in the head on how to tie in our reading. So we all are dedicated to our kids, and I just am excited about that program and just seeing how we can help our kids be more successful. They are the leaders of tomorrow. Thank you.
We'll now move to closing statements, and first up is Mr. Martinez.
Again, Mr. Duke, thank you very much. Appreciate what you've done, Chamber. We thank you very much. In closing, I'd like to say that I hope tonight that you can see from the candidates on the stage In my experience, improving leadership is what our town needs to move forward. My accomplishments in life have all been earned through hard work, dedication, and good family values. Tonight's discussion is hopefully separating the candidates by levels of experience. Our city is a business and should be run by someone that will manage our money and integrity honestly and with compassion. We're experiencing change right now, unlike anything we've ever seen in more than 50 years. We'll have nothing to do, we'll have to do things differently, and we'll have to entice new business into our region for us to prosper. We will simply have to tell our story about what we have to offer with an available, proven labor force in conjunction with the wood basin I talked about earlier. We must continue to clean up our town and not allow it to get to an almost unmanageable state before deciding to do something. I'll make sure that all personnel understand the responsibilities and what we will be accountable for in doing those jobs. One distinct area needing attention is that of the preventive maintenance program for our equipment. We have approximately 100 vehicles in varying degrees that the maintenance programs are almost non-existent. We run those pieces of equipment until they shut down for the most part. That's not a reflection on the employees, but it is a reflection on our lacking programs. This would be a huge cost savings opportunity for our city as well. Think about it this way. If you and your family are flying across the United States on vacation, do you want the pilot to be on the first solo flight ever? Or do you want a seasoned, tenured pilot navigating for you? As your mayor, I would be that seasoned pilot. I'm committed to restoring pride back in our community, and will give our infrastructure the attention it needs with fair and consistent leadership. One thing that I will say is the city of Crossett is like a great big cruise liner ship. We need to turn it. You don't turn it on a dime. It's going to have to be turned very slowly, very methodically to get us on the course that we need to be on. I think I can do that. I'll work with each one of you, each one of the members of our city employees, department heads, and I'll work with the 4 people on the stage to help us continue making progress and get us to where we need to be. I thank each one of you for coming tonight, and thank you for the opportunity.
Before you start on the clock, Daryl, it's your job to get those for Jimmy. Okay, so. I was asked a question when I first announced running for mayor. Why should people vote for you as a former pastor since they don't go to church and they don't believe in God? I want to tell you something. The best person that you could have in the mayor is a devout Christian. Here's why. The Bible says in Romans chapter 13, verse 4, that the person that's appointed over the authority by God, that means a mayor, governor, whoever, is a servant of the people. The word servant is a word that's translated many times in the New Testament as the word deacon. I understand deacons in some churches believe they have power and they take power, but that's not what the word is intended. The word is, in its original form, means a waiter of tables. When's the last time you ever went into a restaurant and the waiter told you what you're going to order? You know, like going into the bistro, Chester says, hey, I tell him I want a chicken fried steak. He says, no, David, it's bad for you. You're going to get grilled chicken tonight. Nah, but I want a chicken fried steak. You know, in other words, we're going to have an argument. I'm going to say, hey, well, okay, I'll go next door, whatever. You see, a waiter doesn't tell you what to do. A waiter serves you. A number of years ago, a lady by the name of Joyce Landorf wrote a book entitled Balcony People. It's a great book. It's all about how we should be lifting people up. And I like that concept, except as the more I read the Bible, the more I realized I need to take it a step further. And I don't know exactly what you call it, because if you talk about being a pusher, it sounds like you're doing something bad. But I want to push people up. I want to elevate people above me. I want to get them higher than me. And that's what a servant does, because a servant considers themselves lower, not a boss. The Apostle Paul said in 2 Corinthians 5:20, I am an ambassador for Christ. Now understand the word ambassador. An ambassador for the United States works in a country, but they speak on behalf of the United States. They never speak for. Because when you speak for, that means you're putting your own words into it, but speaking on behalf means you're using the president's words. You see, I think that a mayor or city council ought to be speaking on behalf of the citizens of Crossett, not for the citizens of Crossett. Does that make sense to you? In other words, the mayor's not to be a dictator, the council's not to be dictators, they're not to be saying, okay, this is best for you, and this is what I think you ought to be able to do, and I'm going to, therefore, this is what I'm going to do. No. If you're not listening to the people and allowing the people to say, this is what we want, this is what we need, then why should I be doing something else? So listen to the people. That's why that monthly meeting I want to have. And listen to the people. You come in my office, I promise you I'm going to listen long, long, long and hard. I might not take a lot of notes because if I'm taking notes, I'm not listening to you. I'm going to listen to you. And I promise you, and that's the only promise I'm going to make, is that if you vote for me, I'm going to listen to you. Thank you.
Mr. Cosby.
I was born in 1972. My parents opened a business over on Parkway Drive, around across from the zoo. We lost that zoo. That property has been sitting over there for quite a while and run down state. I see it. I want to address it. I promise you, as mayor, we'll be transparent. We'll have opportunities to address issues like that without letting them go. I'll be proactive, not reactive. My door will be open. I will follow suggestions, and I will set an example. I will work with the men in the street. I happen to have a great relationship with many of them already. I know many of the department heads. I'm familiar with them. I look forward to working with them. I look forward to improving what they're doing for our city by helping streamline efficiencies, by helping stretch our dollars. I want to capitalize on opportunities. We're going to expand on those opportunities. We're going to take what we have now, and we're going to multiply it. We're going to bring our students back to Crossett when they go to college. They're going to come back with a sense of pride. They're going to want to open businesses here. We're going to be able to do more for the people that grow up in Crossett because we're going to be proactive and we're going to be working. I helped Janice Clark mark the trail that was paved. I helped the Wiggins cabin once when they brought it in up there. I ride shingles with them. My brother and my sister and I, we were down there making bricks. Those bricks are still up there. The shingles are gone. They were replaced after the fire. But I want to see things that were important across the road. I want to preserve our heritage. I want to see opportunities for all our children because I want to see my children grow up here. I want to be able to retire here and enjoy a better community. I want to feel like we've had a sense of accomplishment, growing a town that offers great services and resources. We're sitting on a wonderful, wonderful jewel of a town. We've got a rail, we've got a river, we've got access to resources that people around this country are just begging for. They don't have a park, they don't have green spaces, they don't have areas to develop and turn into nice little tranquil places for the community to enjoy. But we've got to streamline our services where we can further develop those opportunities. We have to maximize what we can do. And I'll make sure that I'm proactive. I'll make sure that I'm transparent. I'll work with all the different groups. Hopefully we can grow more of our population in a fast manner. But I know that we can grow more of our offerings for the people that are here. Hopefully we can expand some of the businesses that are here. That's one of our fastest opportunities to bring jobs in. If half our businesses, we just hired 2 new employees. You know, in 1990, we had about 94 additional businesses in Crossett. It's hard to believe. I look forward to the opportunity to serve the community. I feel like I've been serving the community most of my life. I do believe that I'm a steward of the environment. I want to leave it better than my family. I want your children to have a better life than what they know. And I want you to have a better life too. So I ask for your vote. I would select it. Thank you.
Ms. Marshall.
Thank you to the moderator, our Chamber of Commerce, and our American Legion Post 111 for facilitating this event. Thank you to every person here tonight or listening at home, as you've shown how much you care about our town and our future. Life is filled with unexpected events. Since the loss of Mayor McCormick and my swearing in as mayor in April, I have met the many challenges of leading this town and its citizens through tumultuous times that required strong leadership and focus. The grief of losing a longtime civil servant, a global pandemic, racial tensions, and large decreases in our municipal budget. Each unique event required tough decisions and perseverance when the answer has not always been clear. I have welcomed your feedback and have remained focused on what is best for Crossett. While we do not know what lies ahead, I believe it is very clear that we are better together, and together we will not only prevail but excel. Through it all, our team has continued to provide the services on which we all rely, while also making several improvements throughout our city. Dormant projects have been brought back to life under my leadership and support. We are midstream in not only cleaning up Crossett's many properties in need, but also in applying for broadband internet grants to advocate for Crossett's need for stable, reliable internet for our growth and future. When my family moved to Crossett, my husband challenged me to find a way to spend my time that made me feel fulfilled. Prayer and self-reflection led me to know my calling was to empower others and seek to make situations better than when I found them. My municipal experience, my corporate Walmart career, my education, my passion, and my work ethic have brought me here to this stage as your mayor tonight. Together with our team of department heads, employees, and the citizens of Crossett, we have made great progress in the last 3 months and are dedicated to strengthening and growing our economy and our future. I ask for your vote for number 5 on the ballot, Mayor Crystal Marshall, August 11th. Let's continue on this exciting journey. Together we can. Thank you.
And Ms. Mulligan.
Well, I can look at y'all and tell you're tired. My feet hurt from these fabulous wedges from Southern Spine Shop local. So I'm just going to leave you with this. My name is Sarah Holloway, Stag. I am number 2 on the ballot. I love Crossett, Arkansas, and I will not just fight for her. I will fight for her. I will not just work for her. I will fight for her. So there you go.
Thank you once again to our candidates, again for stepping into the arena and your willingness to serve. And thank all of you for coming and your commitment to this community. Good evening. Howard's coming to the turn. I cut off the chairman. What can I do? Sorry about that.
No, that's fine. They probably didn't want to listen to me for a few minutes anyway. So you're going to have to listen to my joke now. I wasn't going to tell it, but now I'm going to tell it. Because with politicians, we have to have one political joke. And you know that's right, Andy. So a politician comes to town, he walks up to the square, and he sees the old gentleman sitting there. He goes, man, this is a nice town you have. It's so homey and it's so nice and well kept. And the guy goes, yeah, it's a nice town, but we got 2 problems. The politician goes, well, I'm a problem solver. So what are your problems? He said, well, one, we got this huge hospital in town, but we don't have a doctor. So the politician gets on his phone, stands there on his cell phone, makes a call, talks for a few minutes, gets off the phone, looks to the old guy and says, hey, tomorrow morning, the doctor's coming to town. I've solved your problem. Old guy goes, well, wow, that's amazing. He goes, now what's your other problem? He goes, we don't have any cell service in this town. I have another one if that's not good. I don't think we heard any of that tonight. I think we had candidates that spoke from the heart and spoke to us truthfully. Tonight, I want us to thank God that we can gather here tonight and that we can hear from our candidates, that we can speak freely. And I'd like the members of the American Legion and the Auxiliary to stand up and be recognized, but without their help and assistance, this would not be possible. These men and women serve our community by donations. They were having their weekly breakfast. The COVID has stopped that, but the work of the Legion goes on. They need your support. They need your help. So keep them in mind and support them in their role in our community and make those donations and help. Wanted also to thank the live stream tonight. If you were looking on your phones, we had pretty much for the whole time, we had over 160 people outside, maybe some in the room that were watching and listening. So I think that was great engagement for our community. I want to thank Ben Gilmore for setting that up and assisting us with that from the chamber. I want to thank Orlando for the sound. It was perfect sound tonight. Great job. Our moderator tonight, Gary, great job. I mean, you could have saved him a few minutes of not listening to me. Mandy said she wanted to come up here. She was going to push me down and come to the mic. But I do appreciate you staying. Thank the folks that did the decorating and took care of us tonight. Most importantly, thank the candidates again for being willing to serve and coming tonight. Thanks to the citizens for the submission of questions and being engaged. Most of all, thank Mandy and folks that helped her plan tonight, put things together. My last comments, early voting, August 4th at the community center, the election on August 11th. I was talking to folks earlier today. Some have already cast their ballot. Some have already voted, made their mind up, absentee ballots. So exercise your right and your freedom to vote. I encourage you to do that. And I'm going to let Mandy, she said she had one thing she wanted to say. So if you'll bear with me, we're going to listen to Mandy for just a second. Thank you again for coming tonight.
I'm gonna be quick because I know y'all are not ready to go home, but y'all have sat out there, and I sat out here in the back with a different view, but the view that I've been looking at, there's a sign down here, and it says never lose, either win or learn. I don't know who put it there, don't know how long it's been there, but this is what I want to say. All 5 of you sitting there are my friends, and one of you guys will win the position and 4 will not. Don't look at that as a loss, and don't ever lose your passion about what you're doing for the cause and for our city and the community that we all live in. And I appreciate all of you coming tonight, being here, and that's all I have to say. Thank you all for coming.